It was after the most recent Sony technical presentation that I had the idea for this video, where Sony unveiled the PlayStation 5 Pro and that it would cost one of my kidneys to get my hands on this console. Dear lord, look at the price on that thing. You see, video games have been around for quite a while, and we've had eras of gaming with defining features, but most importantly for this video, the very long era of console wars. The Nintendo and Sega mascots going head to head with their consoles to try and dominate the video game market, with slanderous advertisements and claims that one company's console was more powerful than the competitors. This rivalry was where the topic of today's video was born: first-party video games. By definition, a first-party video game is a game developed by a studio that is owned or operated by the same company that manufactures the video game console. Nintendo is the easiest example to outline this definition. The company has a division known as Nintendo Entertainment Planning and Development, which has been responsible for developing most Zelda or Mario titles that you can think post-2015, with the most notable examples being Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. You then also have first-party video games that are collaborative efforts, such as Metroid Dread, which was handled by the Spanish-based company Mercury Steam and published by Nintendo for the Switch. Sometimes you'll get an oddball title like Mario and Rabbids, which was developed and published by Ubisoft, so even though technically it's not a first-party Nintendo game by definition, it uses Nintendo characters, and we all know how Nintendo is. This game is not going to go to any other platform, and hey, if it somehow does, at least this will have aged like spoiled milk or something along those lines. I don't know, English isn't my first language. But to get to the point, the reason why I'm talking about first-party video games and what constitutes a first-party video game is because of the most recent state of play, where Sony and Sucker Punch dropped a Ghost of Yotei seemingly out of nowhere. I for one thought Ghost of Tsushima was going to be a one-hit wonder, but my jaw dropped when I found out that they implied that the success of Tsushima, and hopefully the success of Yotei when that drops sometime in 2025, will create a new Ghost of series of video games. But that's when I got to thinking. I was fortunate enough to be one of the few handful of people to get their hands on a PlayStation 5 on release day, which is a whole nother era of gaming and a story for another day. But because I have the console, I can play Ghost of Yotei when it drops in 2025. But as excited as I am for this game, I don't actually think I'll be playing it day one on PlayStation 5. Let me explain what I mean by that. In 2020, Sony announced that they would start to port their first-party games to PC, starting first with a port of 2017's Horizon Zero Dawn on August 7th, 2020. This was a bit shocking because Sony had always been pretty protective of their intellectual properties, but in that same year, Sony also revealed the sequel to Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, just a few months before the prequel made its way to PC. You see where I'm getting at? Sony has devised this strategy where they port their older games to PC to broaden their audience, but still release the sequels and new IPs on their most recent system, most likely to get people to purchase their consoles to experience more of their games. With the release of God of War Ragnarok on PC about a month ago, we know that Sony is still willing to eventually release their newer games on PC. So what gives? Are these games no longer considered first party since they aren't exclusive to one platform anymore? Well, if you look at this discussion post from 10 years ago on GameFAQs, these gamers are following the definition for what a first party video game should be. And this guy even says that the discussion topic is superfluous because Sony would never dare port their games. But here we are. This guy is probably his pants right now. Whether you think these games are still first party or not, the formula for what makes a first party game has slowly been changing for years now. First party games, at least on the Sony and Xbox front, are no longer these prized possessions that other consoles cannot have. Instead, they're meant to keep driving console sales like they've always been doing, but now there's a peak exclusivity time frame where profits have been maximized and the time to breathe new life into the game has come. If you've ever seen a trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Final Fantasy XVI, they have this disclaimer indicating when the exclusivity period is up. And I know that these aren't first-party Sony titles and belong to Square Enix, but Sony and Square Enix have historically had a very firm relationship without Sony outright owning the brand, which is why Final Fantasy visually shows an approximate window of time for when consumers can expect these games to come to PC. After the Final Fantasy XVI exclusivity was up, producer Yoshi P said many times that a PC version is in production, but that was it. We knew it was coming, but they never showed anything until 2 weeks prior to the game's release on September 17th, 2024. I don't think Sony will go around stating at the end of their trailers when their games will leave the PS5, but we now know that having these games ported a couple years after they've made their debut on console is proving to be a much more effective strategy in generating money and garnering a larger audience, as opposed to keeping the game truly exclusive to one console indefinitely. So to get back to the very beginning, the reason why I don't see myself playing Ghost of Yotei on launch day is because there is precedent to believe that this game will eventually come to PC, and I'm perfectly content with waiting. My Steam backlog could use some dusting off in the meantime. I don't know why I bought this game or what it is, but it, time to try. Also, while I'm here talking about this, can I just take a second to say, please give us Bloodborne on PC already, Sony? Or at the very least, give us a PS5 upgrade path or just something, anything. Please throw us a bone here. This game deserves better. I'm not really into the Souls genre, but Bloodborne is genuinely special. My friend from Portugal sold me on this game by saying everybody and their grandma plays Bloodborne, so I'm really glad I gave this game a chance on PS4 and would kill to have it on PC with crispy graphics and uncapped frame rate. A man can dream. Bloodborne aside, that begs the question, is it even worth buying a PlayStation or even an Xbox anymore? I saw this one YouTube short where the guy basically said, just get a PC. It's more cost effective since you can easily upgrade parts for cheaper. It also performs better than a PlayStation 5, and you can also do a variety of different things like Excel spreadsheets or something. I don't know, it's a computer for crying out loud. The shit people do with these systems is insane. This is perfectly plausible reasoning, but it's only one side of the argument, and I want to show you guys the other side as well to give you a fuller picture. Yes, PCs might be stronger, they might be more cost effective with how easily you can upgrade parts, they might be able to do so much more than just run video games. There's no question about it, but all of these reasons are exactly why consoles haven't been overtaken or phased out of the picture. Consoles are designed to be simple and to perform one task: play video games. You've had a long day at work and all you want to do is just jump on the couch and play some games on the TV. Exclusive games are also what keep consoles relevant, and it's how they differentiate themselves in the market. Nowadays, consoles even act as Blu-ray players and come with lots of streaming apps like Netflix or Spotify, so your options aren't limited to just gaming. It's true that a PC can do everything a console can and then some, but with a PC, you've got to first build the thing or buy it pre-built. And also, you have to maintain drivers and alter settings for each game to make sure it's optimized to your specific system. On PC, most games will automatically do this for you, but sometimes they don't necessarily know your system like you do, and it can cause some issues. Going back to Final Fantasy 16, I've been playing quite a bit of this game on PC, and I have times in combat where the game will hit a frame stutter, which essentially is like a millisecond where the frame hits a low number, so it looks like the screen is tearing. It seems I'm not the only one having this issue either. You can check out Digital Foundry's tech review of the game to better understand what I'm talking about, but the point being is that this kind of technical issue is a much bigger cause for concern on a console than it is on a PC. To be fair, Final Fantasy 16 on original PS5 hardware did have some limitations, as do most other PlayStation titles where you're prompted to choose a performance mode or a graphical mode, but having both high performance and graphics at the same time is something the PS5 Pro hopes to make the standard. At the very least, the game isn't crashing, it's not stuttering wildly, and there aren't any game-breaking bugs, because if there were, like how Cyberpunk 2077 shipped on PS4 and Xbox One, then the product would most likely be recalled. But if a game ships like that on PC, your best bet is praying the developers care enough to patch it. I haven't even mentioned digital storefronts, since that's probably where you're going to buy most of your games on PC. The whole digital gaming experience and how you don't actually own the games, but instead get a key or license to play the game, at least on storefronts like Steam or Epic Game Store, and also DRM to prevent tampering with game files, is a whole can of worms for another video. But it is another reason that needs to be stated for why consoles will continue to have relevance. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The PS5 Pro is digital only? I know a lot of people are dogpiling on Sony right now for a variety of valid reasons, like the completely unnecessary PlayStation Network requirements on PC and the equally unnecessary and more so just bizarre remastering of pretty recent games that don't need to be remastered so soon. More recently, consumers are rightfully upset about the price of the PS5 Pro, which, yeah, I do find it to be a tad bit high, and that's putting it mildly. There is a consumer breaking point, and I couldn't tell you what that price point is, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Let's not forget how the PlayStation 3 started with an MSRP of $500 and $600 respectively. That was back in 2006, so to put it into comparison, the PlayStation 5 in 2020 had an MSRP of $400 for the digital version and $500 for the disc version. They also increased the price of these consoles in Japan a little over a month ago by about $100. I doubt Sony would haphazardly slap a steep price onto their console, especially given their history, but it does make you wonder what kind of numbers and statistics that they see over at Sony HQ to justify selling the PS5 Pro at $700. As a disclaimer, I didn't study economics or business, I'm purely speculating here, but I welcome anybody watching who does have experience in this subject to leave a comment down below. Learning is part of the fun of making these videos. Anyway, who cares if I prioritize PC over PS5? I'm not the target demographic anyway, since I already bought a PS5. With that in mind though, you've now got this interesting push and pull going on. Sony is dangling this carrot on a stick by porting their older games to PC, and what they hope is that PC gamers will bite the stick and then buy a PS5 to play the sequel. But to be able to play the game at the best possible settings without having to choose between a performance mode or a graphics mode, they need a PS5 Pro, which, as we know, costs a whole 700 smackaroos. It remains to be seen just how effective this strategy is for Sony, but at least one thing is evident about this whole scenario. This benefits everybody, console and PC gamers alike. Console gamers continue to get their day one exclusives, and PC gamers can hop in on the fun later down the line. It's still not really certain if this strategy will cause people to migrate entirely from one platform to the other, but at least in my case, that's exactly what ended up happening, and it may also be the case for you. PCs are closing the gap unsurprisingly quick and are starting to mimic consoles a lot more efficiently. Steam's big picture mode is the first thing that comes to mind. It's meant to resemble the home screen of a console and works flawlessly with basically any kind of controller you can think of. You can even make it so that Steam starts in big picture mode when you launch your PC, cutting out the need for keyboard and mouse entirely. You could put this thing in your living room if you wanted to and just hook it up to your TV. Prior to 2020, I was exclusively a console guy, but after I got my first job and my first paycheck hit, I upgraded my crusty old laptop to a gaming one, and that was the appetizer, the taste of what PC gaming could be that eventually got me to build my own PC in late 2022. I absolutely love my PC. I defiled these pins with wire cutters and magnetic tape and stuck them on the case, since I've never actually seen people use these on suits, so I thought I'd refurbish them for a different purpose. I love just randomly moving them around, and I also love being able to play Sony games via Steam whenever they do get ported to the platform, which does take time, but time I'm willing to wait, especially since adulthood has made my time more volatile, for a lack of better words. I miss the days when I could stay up until midnight for a game's release, then just spend all day gaming, or game for hours after school. I'll get around to playing the games when I can. Work and chores come first, so that's why I appreciate what Sony is doing with their games, since my PC is more accessible to me anyway, and I can take a break every now and then to play Ghost of Tsushima, then get right back to work. To me, my PS5 has become more of a wayback machine, since it's backwards compatible with PS4, and some games are still exclusive, like Bloodborne and Infamous Second Son, but also because my PS5 is my only way to access some oddball games that'll likely never see the light of day on another platform, like Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax Ignition. I love this game. It's a crossover fighting game between a bunch of Japanese light novels like Toradora, Sword Art Online, and Devil is a Part-Timer, just to name a few. But anyway, before I get sidetracked talking about why Dengeki Bunko is actually one of the best fighting games of all time, console gamers continue to derive a lot of value from owning a home console with exclusive titles, and PC gamers are not left out. They can also join in on the fun. Like I said, everybody is a winner, and I think that going forward, Sony will start to accelerate this porting process, simply due to how high the demand is on PC. 2018's God of War came to PC 4 years later in 2022, but the 2022 sequel God of War Ragnarok came to PC about a month ago in 2024, only 2 years after the game initially launched on PS5. Anything is possible, but currently only one thing is for certain. Sony is changing the meaning to the term first-party video game and taking a massive step forward for the gaming industry, and even though they've taken some steps backwards in regards to other recent choices they've made, this diversified first-party market is the era of gaming that we find ourselves in today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, me? I mean, there are two boats, like, just choose a boat.
Yeah, but they're cool.
Yeah, but can you stop? Just... Come on, dude, never. He's not...